I was pouring oat milk into my coffee when the door to the break room swung open a little too hard. Logan, my office. Now, just like that. No good morning. No hello. No eye contact. Just a barked order from Brandon, the new CEO, who also happened to be the founder's son. I didn't answer. Just turned around slowly, coffee still in hand. Half the room froze. Jenna paused mid-pour at the Keurig. Dylan shifted like he suddenly forgot what he came in for. Nobody said anything. Nobody dared. I nodded once, calm as ever, and followed him out. That hallway felt longer than usual. The hum of the overhead lights, the quiet pressure of everyone not looking at me. Brandon walked fast, like he had somewhere important to be, though clearly, that somewhere was firing me. We reached his office. He didn't hold the door, just pushed through and stood behind his desk, arms crossed. He didn't sit. "This isn't working," he said flatly. "We're letting you go." I blinked once. "I'm sorry. You're lazy," he said. "And we don't need dead weight. You've been coasting." That was it. No warning. No meeting with HR. Not even a sentence longer than 10 words. I didn't flinch. 11 years. I've been at the company 11 years. Built account operations from scratch. Wrote the onboarding manuals. Trained the very people who were probably still sipping their coffees in the break room. Wide-eyed. I set my coffee on the corner of his desk on purpose and said, "Understood." He raised an eyebrow like he expected a fight, but I wasn't giving him the satisfaction. "I'll pack up now," I added, voice steady. He gave a short nod like a man who thought he'd just done something bold. "Security will escort you out." I gave him a smile. Not warm, not bitter. Just enough to make him think maybe he missed something. "Won't be necessary." I turned and walked out. Just like that. Back at my desk, I started boxing up my things. A photo of my dog from when he was a puppy. A few notebooks. A branded mug from the first Brantley kickoff. Jenna walked over, eyes wide. "What happened?" She whispered. "He fired me," I said, tossing some pins into the box. She blinked. What? Now?" "Before the Brantley close." I didn't answer. Just closed the top of the box and picked it up. A few people had gathered, watching like it was a funeral. Dylan took his earbuds out. Tasha stared from her desk like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. I walked past them without a word, out the front doors, and into the June heat. I didn't look back. And here's what Brandon didn't know, and apparently didn't care to find out. I was the only person in the entire company authorized to close the Brantley Logistics deal. My name, my clearance, my signature. Without me, that deal wasn't just delayed. It was dead. So while he was puffing his chest and playing boss, I was walking away holding the one thing he didn't understand. Leverage. He thought he'd won. He had no idea what he'd just done. The next morning, just after 8, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. No caller ID, just a plain string of digits. I was sitting at my kitchen table, still in sweatpants, eating cereal straight out of the box. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. "Hello, Logan. It's Mr. Callahan." I froze. The voice was deep, gravelly, unmistakable. The founder, the real CEO, the man whose name was still on the building, even if his son was the one throwing his weight around these days. "Sir," I said, sitting up straighter without thinking. "Good morning. Why the hell did you walk out yesterday?" he asked. It wasn't angry, more confused, like someone who just discovered the engine fell out of his car and wanted to know who unscrewed the bolts. "I didn't walk out," I said. "Your son fired me." There was a long pause. I could hear papers shifting in the background. A sigh. "Did he even read your contract?" "No," I said. "I'm guessing he didn't." Silence again. Not angry silence. Calculating. "You're the only one authorized to close the Brantley Logistics deal. That correct?" "That's correct," I said. "And you were supposed to finalize it this Friday." "Still am, technically," I said, "unless someone else forged my access badge overnight." Mr. Callahan let out a sound that was somewhere between a grunt and a chuckle. "That deal is worth what? 12.4 million first year, right? Closer to 13 with the upsell." Another pause. "And Brandon just fired the one person who can legally and logistically close it." "Yes, sir." He didn't curse, but I could feel the swear words vibrating in his jaw. "Where are you right now?" "At home." "Don't move. Don't answer any calls unless it's me. Don't email anyone. Don't respond to Slack. You hear me?" "Yes, sir. I'll call back shortly." Click. I sat there for a second, phone still pressed to my ear even though the line was dead. Then I leaned back and let the moment sink in. Brandon, golden boy, office sitter, power suit wearer, had just lit a match to a $13 million contract because he wanted to prove something. And now his father, the man who actually built this company, was about to find out just how badly he'd screwed up. And I wasn't just some mid-level manager packing up a cardboard box. I was the linchpin, the one thing standing between this company and a very public, very expensive failure. I stood up. walked over to the window, and watched the neighborhood start its morning. Joggers, delivery vans, someone chasing a runaway dog. Meanwhile, a Fortune 500 CEO was pacing his office in a quiet panic, realizing his heir just tripped over his own ego. The best part? Brandon didn't even know it yet, but he would. He definitely would. By 10 a.m., my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. First it was Brandon. Then it was Brandon again. Then the front desk called. Then legal. Then HR. I didn't answer a single one. They didn't deserve my voice right now. I wasn't going to be the guy they called to fix the mess they created. Not on demand. Not like that. I let the calls go to voicemail and kept the volume low. Sat back with another cup of coffee and watched the chaos unfold from the calm of my living room. Then came the message I was waiting for. Brandon's voice, tight and too rehearsed. Logan, there's been a misunderstanding. We need you back. Today. Please call me as soon as you can. No apology. No admission. Just desperation wrapped in fake professionalism. I smiled to myself. There it was. The shift. The moment when someone realizes they pushed the wrong domino, and now the whole thing's tipping over. About 20 minutes later, Jenna called. I let it go to voicemail, too, but then she texted me. Jenna, just listen. You're gonna want to know this. Curious, I picked up when she called back again. You're not gonna believe what just happened, she whispered, like she was hiding in a closet. Try me. Brandon just got torched in the boardroom. In front of everyone. Like, everyone. Your name came up within the first 60 seconds. I leaned back on the couch. How bad? Brutal. Mr. Callahan asked one question. Just one. He said, did you read Logan's contract before firing him? Brandon couldn't answer. He just stood there. I stayed quiet, letting the satisfaction simmer a little. Then Mr. Callahan said something like, you just put our biggest deal at risk because you didn't do your homework. You could hear a pin drop. What did Brandon say? He tried to stammer something about performance issues, but it didn't land. Mr. Callahan just shook his head, said, your position here is now contingent on salvaging what you've broken. Then he left. Didn't even let Brandon finish his sentence. Damn, that meant only one thing. Brandon was now skating on thin ice, and I was the guy holding the blowtorch. He looked like he was going to pass out, Jenna added. Where is he now? Locked in his office. Probably calling you for the 10th time. I checked my phone. He had, in fact, called again. Twice. I hung up with Jenna and stood up. The energy in my body had shifted. No longer just burnt out and blindsided. Now, I had options. They needed me. That was the simple truth of it. They could draft all the emails they wanted, send legal into a frenzy, sit in meetings throwing around words like resolution and mitigation, but none of that would get them Brantley logistics without me. And Brandon? He could try to claw back his image all he wanted, but the damage was done. His own father saw it. The board saw it. And soon, the entire executive tier would know the real story. He thought he was cutting fat. Turned out, he just severed an artery. And me? I wasn't rushing back in to stop the bleeding. Not unless the terms were very, very different this time. At 1:12 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from a number I hadn't saved, but I recognized it immediately. Mr. Callahan, please come in. Let's talk. I stared at it for a few seconds, then typed my response. Me. Only under clear conditions. Full control over Brantley deal. In writing. 10 minutes later, another text arrived. Short and to the point. Mr. Callahan. Agreed. I'll see you at 2 o'clock. I didn't put on a tie. Didn't dust off a suit. I wore what I always wore, clean jeans, buttoned down, no nonsense. I wasn't walking back in there to impress anyone. I was walking in to take back what should have never been touched. The receptionist looked like she'd seen a ghost when I walked through the main entrance. Box of files in one hand, phone in the other. A couple coworkers straightened up as I passed. Some just stared, unsure whether to say welcome back or just pretend nothing happened. I didn't stop, didn't wave, just walked straight to the top floor. Mr. Callahan was already in the conference room. Alone. No Brandon, no HR, just him, a folder, and a bottle of water he hadn't touched. Logan, he said, standing. Mr. Callahan. He motioned for me to sit. I owe you an apology. I sat down, carefully setting my folder on the table. I'll hear it. He nodded. What happened shouldn't have happened. My son. He acted without understanding the consequences. That's on me, too. I should have stepped in sooner. I'm not here to assign blame, I said. I'm here to make sure Brantley closes, and that I'm never put in this position again. He slid the folder toward me. This outlines your authority moving forward. Full lead on the Brantley deal. All communications flow through you. Final decision-making power, operational sign-off, access to all related accounts and records. It's in writing. Legal's already reviewed it. I opened the folder, read a few lines, and nodded. Good. There's one more thing. Of course, No more interference from Brandon, I said, looking him directly in the eyes. Not on this deal. Not on anything I touch. Ever. He didn't hesitate. Done. I want that added to the document. I'll have it redrafted this afternoon, he said. And in the meantime, I'll circulate a memo internally. You'll have what you need. We shook hands. Not like strangers. Not like old friends either. More like two people who finally saw each other clearly. As I walked out of that room, I felt every eye on me. The whispers, the texts being fired off under desks, people trying to figure out what had just happened and what it meant. Let them wonder. I passed Brandon's office on my way out. The door was closed, blinds drawn. Coward's camouflage. He knew. He had to know. The moment I walked back into that building, everything shifted. And this time, it wasn't me on the back foot. I stepped into the elevator, folder tucked under my arm, and watched the floors tick down. I wasn't just back. I was back on my terms. 3 days later, I sat across from the CEO of Brantley Logistics, a quiet guy named Vincent Cho who had a habit of tapping his pen exactly 3 times before speaking. Mr. Reynolds, he said, nodding as I entered the room. Glad to see you again. I smiled and shook his hand. Vincent, thank you for making time. I was told there were changes. There were, I said, but they've been corrected. He studied me for a beat, then smiled. That's good to hear. The meeting went smooth as silk. We reviewed the revised integration timelines, updated deliverables, walked through the support package. I'd done this kind of work 100 times, but this one felt different. Not just because of the stakes, but because I was doing it with something to prove. At one point, I greeted one of his regional VPs in Korean. Just a brief introduction, but the man beamed. Vincent raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. Didn't know you spoke the language. I don't, I admitted. Just enough to say hello and thank you. But I figured it mattered. Vincent chuckled. It does. Outside the glass walls of the conference room, I spotted Brandon pacing. He hadn't been invited to the meeting. He tried to insert himself early on, but Mr. Callahan shut that down fast. We let the expert handle it, he'd said. So Brandon stood there in his tailored suit, staring in like a kid who wasn't allowed on the ride. As we wrapped up, Vincent leaned forward. I have to admit, he said, I had my doubts last week. The change in communication, the sudden silence, it almost tanked our confidence. I understand, I said, and I take full responsibility for the lapse. But I can assure you, nothing like that will happen again. He nodded, then pulled the contract toward him. You handled this with professionalism and respect. That goes a long way with us. He signed, just like that, $13 million secured. When we stepped out of the room, Mr. Callahan was already there. He shook Vincent's hand and thanked him personally. Then he turned to me. You saved us. I glanced at Brandon, who stood frozen by the hallway. His jaw was tight, his arms folded. Powerless. I turned back to Mr. Callahan. Then make sure leadership here starts earning what they've been given. He nodded, slowly, thoughtfully. Noted. I gathered my papers and walked past Brandon. He didn't say a word, just stared like he was trying to rewrite history with his eyes. Too late. Everyone saw who got the deal done. Everyone knew who stepped up when it mattered. And everyone noticed who wasn't even allowed in the room. I didn't need a standing ovation, just results. And now, I had both. The first red flag came a week after the Brantley deal was signed. My expense report, routine, clean, triple-checked, went missing. Just disappeared from the system. Accounting said they never got it. I knew I had submitted it. I even had the confirmation email. The next week, a vendor called to ask about a delay in approvals. Nothing huge, just a minor software update we needed to run analytics for Brantley. But according to them, I'd pushed the schedule back. Except I hadn't. I dug into the system. Someone had used my login to make the change. But I was in a client meeting at the time. I had proof. That's when I looped in IT. They ran a trace and confirmed it. My credentials were used, but from a different IP address inside the building. Not a hack, not an error. Copied. Internally, someone was trying to screw with me. At first, I thought maybe it was sloppy admin work. Then the fake email it was sent to another client. Subtle enough to look real. Same tone, same style. But it offered terms I'd never agreed to. I only found out when the client replied asking for clarification. The original email had my name, my signature, but it wasn't me. IT dug deeper. This time, they traced the login to Brandon's assistant's computer. The smoking gun was still warm. That's when it hit me. This wasn't incompetence. It was sabotage. Brandon wasn't trying to fire me anymore. He was trying to rot me from the inside out. Quietly, slowly, without getting his own hands dirty. I started documenting everything. Every login, every change, every weird delay. I printed backup copies, saved local files, timestamped screenshots. I had a folder in my desk drawer labeled insurance. The kind you hope you never have to use, but are damn glad to have when it matters. Then, one afternoon, I passed the stairwell near the East conference rooms and heard my name. He's unstable, Brandon was saying. He's not fit to manage high-value clients. The board's going to see it eventually. I froze mid-step. Yeah, he continued, talking to someone I couldn't see. Give it time. He's bound to snap. I mean, he got fired and then came crawling back with demands. Who does that? Crawling back? I stood there, teeth clenched, heart pounding. He wasn't just trying to chip away at my work. He was trying to destroy my reputation, slowly poison the perception of me until someone else pulled the plug. Coward. He couldn't take me head-on, so he was playing dirty. Character assassination by 1,000 paper cuts. But he underestimated something big. I'd been through worse. I'd survived layoffs, restructures, even a merger where half the staff got wiped out. I'd learned to keep receipts, learned how to stay calm when everything around me cracked. This was just another storm. The difference now was, this time, I wasn't alone. People noticed. Jenna started forwarding me messages when things felt off. Legal sent a quiet heads-up about a discrepancy they didn't want to say out loud. Even IT gave me a wink one morning when I passed their desk. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. Brandon was playing chess with a broken board, and I was already 5 moves ahead. The folder hit my desk like a brick, thick, sealed, and marked confidential in bold red letters. Mr. Callahan stood over me, arms crossed. No small talk, no preamble. This is your revised contract, he said, and I've launched an internal audit. That caught me off guard. An audit? He nodded. Too much weird activity lately. Approvals changing. Email logs not matching. And you're not the only one noticing. I opened the folder and skimmed the first few pages. The contract was exactly as promised. Solid protections, expanded scope, final authority in writing. But the audit? That was unexpected and long overdue. The building felt different over the next few days. Quieter, tense. People whispered more, held doors for each other awkwardly. Fewer hallway jokes. You could almost hear the suspicion floating between departments. The audit team moved in quietly but efficiently. 2 internal people from compliance, 1 outside consultant. They set up in conference room B and barely spoke to anyone unless absolutely necessary. By the 3rd day, Jenna slipped into my office, eyes wide. They found stuff, she whispered. What kind of stuff? Fake emails, altered spreadsheets, access logs that don't match up. Link to? She hesitated. Brandon's assistant. Her login was used on almost all of it. That was enough for me. I want to be present when they present the findings, I said. Jenna blinked. You sure? Yeah. I want him to see me. Hear it. Know that I know. The meeting was scheduled for Friday at noon. A closed-door session with legal, HR, and Mr. Callahan. Brandon was notified late Thursday. He showed up looking like he hadn't slept. Sleeves wrinkled, eyes darting. I was already in the room when he walked in, sitting at the far end of the table with my folder of documentation. He froze for a half-second when he saw me, then composed himself and sat down like he had something to contribute. The audit lead stood up. We've identified multiple instances of system tampering, unauthorized use of credentials, fabricated communications to both internal and external stakeholders. Brandon leaned forward. Are you suggesting there's a data breach? No, the lead said. We're saying this was internal. She clicked the remote. A screen behind her lit up with a spreadsheet, entries highlighted in red. These edits were made under Mr. Reynolds' name, but from an IP address assigned to Executive Admin 3B. That's your assistant's workstation. Brandon shifted. She has access to a lot of things. That's not proof. There's more, the lead interrupted. The fake email sent to Global Tech was drafted using your internal template, Brandon. The signature code embedded in the HTML matches your personal layout. Silence. Mr. Callahan stood, calm, but colder than I'd ever seen him. I gave you a second chance, he said to Brandon, and you used it to undermine the one person who saved your mistake. Brandon's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Mr. Callahan turned to HR, effective immediately. He suspended. Brandon stood up so fast his chair nearly toppled. You're suspending me? Based on assumptions? No, Mr. Callahan said firmly. Based on facts. Verified, time-stamped, and witnessed. If you believe otherwise, you can appeal it. From outside this building. Brandon looked at me then. Really looked, but I didn't say a word. Didn't blink. He walked out red-faced, muttering something no one caught. And I sat there, silent, but not quiet, because silence, in that moment, was louder than anything I could have said. Brandon's termination didn't come with a bang. No company-wide email. No dramatic press release. Just gone, like a name scrubbed from a roster. His office was empty by Monday. His assistant was reassigned. His nameplate vanished overnight. It was exactly how Mr. Callahan wanted it. Quiet, clean, and final. He called me in later that week. Same conference room. No folder this time. You've shown more leadership in the past month than Brandon has in his entire time here, he said, looking straight at me. We need people like you at the top. I didn't respond right away. He leaned forward. I want you to take the Director of Client Strategy role. Executive tier. You'll have your own team. Full autonomy. I nodded slowly. I'll accept. His shoulders relaxed a little. But I wasn't finished. I want more than a title, I said. I want a say in culture. He raised an eyebrow. I'm not interested in playing hero every time someone torches a deal. I want to build something better, where people don't get sidelined for telling the truth or steamrolled by someone with a last name that matches the building. Mr. Callahan nodded. You'll have that, starting immediately. Then I'm in. We shook hands, not as boss and employee, but as two people who finally understood each other. Later that evening, I stepped into my new office. Bigger windows, cleaner desk, no nameplate yet, but I didn't need one. The view was different up here. You could see the city skyline, the glow of late commuters, the flicker of red tail lights winding through downtown. I sat down in the leather chair, stiffer than I liked, but the kind you grow into, and let the moment sink in. I'd walked out of this building 3 weeks ago with a cardboard box and a calm smile. I was supposed to be forgotten, dismissed, replaced. Now, I wasn't just back. I was higher, sharper, unshakable. People knocked before they entered now. They asked for my input before pushing changes. Legal CC'd me on contracts I used to fight to get visibility on. Respect wasn't given. I had to earn every ounce of it, the hard way. But now that I had it, I was going to use it, and not just for myself. That night, I sat alone in the quiet office, watching the lights dim across the other floors. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was fighting to keep my seat. I was building the damn table. The first thing I did in my new role wasn't sign contracts or restructure departments. I reopened conversations. I called up former employees, people who had quietly disappeared over the years. Some left during Brandon's rise, others even before that. Smart, capable people who'd stopped fighting the current and just let themselves drift away. One of them, Kara, used to run onboarding. She told me over coffee. I left because no one listened, not even when I screamed. Another was Pete from data analytics. It got toxic, he said. Everyone acted like surviving was the same as thriving. Some of them came back, not because I begged, but because they heard something had shifted. That someone in the corner office actually cared now. I created an anonymous reporting channel. No names, no judgment, just a place where people could speak freely. And they did. About past experiences, silent retaliation, promotions that never came. Things I'd suspected, but now had proof of. When juniors started dropping by my office, I knew it was working. One of them, Rachel, fresh out of college, eyes too wide for this place, asked me straight up, "How did you stay sane?" I looked at her for a second and said, "You don't choose the battles. You choose who you are during them." That stuck with her. I could see it. And maybe it stuck with me, too. As for Brandon, last I heard, he was bouncing around startups in Texas, job hopping, resume tweaking. No roots, no follow-through. He'd been raised to believe leadership came from inheritance. But the truth is, leadership's forged in storms, not gifted. I stopped checking up on him. He wasn't my problem anymore. I had people to look after, a company to reshape, culture to fix from the bones up. We started reworking policy, real updates, not just the kind that lived in dusty HR binders. Mentorship programs, exit interviews with real teeth, transparency on raises and promotions, a new employee handbook that didn't read like it was printed in 1997. And slowly, things started to shift. Meetings got a little quieter, less posturing, more listening. Junior staff started contributing without looking over their shoulders first. People smiled more. Not the fake, everything's fine kind. Real ones. The company wasn't perfect. It wouldn't be, not overnight. But it was ours again. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was defending my place in it. I felt like I was giving others a chance to finally find theirs.